They told her she didn't belong. They walked past her at the job fair like she was invisible. People with polished leather shoes and company badges smiled at each other and ignored the black mechanic standing by her toolbox. Then, when the CEO's shiny car coughed and stalled only yards away, everything changed in 90 seconds. No one thought she could fix it. In less than 2 minutes, a woman they dismissed as just another vendor opened the hood and did the unthinkable, leaving the CEO speechless, the recruiters scrambling, and the crowd silent. If you love stories where the underdog wins with dignity, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and make sure you watch until the end. You won't want to miss the moment that changes everything. It started like most job fairs. Tents, flyers, small talk meant to sound important. Our protagonist, the black mechanic, had driven 2 hours that morning. She'd shown up in greasy overalls, not to ask for charity, but because she had skill. Years of apprenticeship, long nights under the hood, certificates tucked into a worn wallet. She believed in craft. The recruiters believed in resumes and in quick judgments. At first, she smiled and waited. A recruitment rep with a perfect name badge glanced over and said, "We're not hiring mechanics here." The line was the kind you use when you don't want to be rude. In that one sentence, they dismissed her work, her skill, and every late night she'd spent learning. The injustice felt small to them, huge to her, and it set the room on edge. She was about to leave, until the CEO's car stalled. What happened next made everyone regret the way they'd looked at her. The CEO had been charming, laughing with investors. Then his car wouldn't start. He waved a terse hand and told an assistant to handle it. The assistant's face tightened when she saw the mechanic crowd. They called someone from the company's own service desk. A white man with a generic wrench came over, but he couldn't find the problem. Time ticked. A line formed. People began to whisper. Our mechanic stayed where she was. She could have kept walking. Instead, she walked toward the car with quiet steps and a steady jaw. People nudged each other. Why is she going? Who is she to touch that car? Their surprise would be the first crack in their assumptions. Inside, she was calm. She'd been rejected before. Job applications, internships, offhand comments that cut deeper than any tool. But she'd also fixed engines that others said were done for. Her hands remembered what her mind wanted to prove. Her dignity kept her voice measured. She didn't shout. She didn't demand. She offered competence. And for some, that was a hard thing to accept. As she opened the hood, she saw something the others hadn't. And it wasn't small. The crowd leaned in. But the next person to speak would change everything. She found a loose sensor wire, quick and dirty work if you know where to look. The company mechanic had checked the obvious. He hadn't seen the tiny frayed wire tucked behind the manifold. In 90 seconds, she stripped the line, reconnected it, and restarted the engine. The car turned over, smooth, sure, as if it had been waiting for her hands. The CEO, mid-conversation in front of a tent of investors, looked up. For a second, the man who had turned away hopeful faces saw a woman he hadn't expected to need. His surprised silence felt like consequence. No loud victory speech, no gloating. She closed the hood, wiped her hands on a rag, and stepped back. The silence in the room turned to murmurs, then to awkward applause from people who had just realized how wrong they'd been. The recruiters shuffled their papers. The assistant who had waved her off suddenly offered a tight, belated, "Thank you." It sounded thin. She didn't demand a job then and there. That wasn't the point. She stood there like a lesson given with dignity. Skill cannot be guessed by the way someone looks. But the CEO didn't stop at thanks. He asked a question that stunned the room, and it set up a choice that would decide her future. What did he ask? And what did she say? He asked how long she'd been a mechanic. He asked where she trained. He asked why she was at a job fair. Every question felt like a test. She answered plainly, years of work, Nights in a garage, a certificate earned the hard way. She didn't ask for pity. She asked for fairness. Now the room watched the CEO decide, would he reward the skill he'd nearly ignored? Or would he let the moment pass and go back to the comfortable rhythm of overlooking talent? The CEO did something unexpected. He apologized, not theatrically, but with a steady voice that acknowledged the wrong. He asked if she would meet with his company about a training program, about mentoring, about making room for people like her. It was more than a job offer. It was access. Her measured nod answered everything he needed to hear. She left that day with more than the satisfaction of a fixed engine. She left with an invitation to change a system that had been slow to look beyond uniforms. Weeks after the job fair, she received an offer, an internship program with the company, a stepping stone into an industry that rarely opened its doors to women like her. She showed up on her first day in crisp overalls, toolbox in hand, and determination in her step. But inside, the stares returned. Whispers followed her down the hallway. Some colleagues nodded politely, but many ignored her. The same recruiters who had rejected her at the fair now avoided eye contact. It wasn't just cold shoulders, it was paperwork delayed, tools misplaced, instructions handed out too late. It felt like sabotage. One afternoon, a manager assigned her a task no intern had ever been given: repair a high-profile client's car under a deadline so impossible it was meant to make her fail. She saw through it, but what she did next left even her critics silent. The car sat in the center of the shop, a luxury import with a reputation for tricky electronics. She had 90 minutes to diagnose and repair it. Co-workers leaned on tool benches, waiting for her to stumble. Some smiled at each other, already predicting her failure. But she remembered the job fair. She remembered the silence after the engine roared back to life. And she remembered something her grandmother once told her. Don't fight to prove them wrong. Work to prove yourself right. She opened the hood, blocked out the whispers, and got to work. With every click of a wrench, time slipped away. At minute 88, the engine hummed steady. She lowered the hood, wiped her hands, and turned the key. The car came alive. The room froze. She had done in 1 hour and 28 minutes what they thought couldn't be done at all. Word spread quickly, and the CEO himself called her to his office. But what he told her wasn't the praise she expected. He looked tired. He admitted the truth. Some on his board didn't want her there. They feared change and optics. They argued she was only given a chance because of the incident at the job fair. She listened quietly. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She said only one thing. I wasn't given a chance. I took one, and I showed you the results. The CEO leaned back, silent. Then, slowly, he nodded. He promised her not just a spot in the program, but a role helping design a new pipeline for mechanics like her, overlooked yet overflowing with skill. Months later, she wasn't just an intern. She became the face of a training initiative that opened doors for dozens of others. The same halls that once whispered against her now echoed with footsteps of new black talent, inspired by her quiet courage. She hadn't just fixed cars. She'd forced a system to see what it ignored. Her story spread, but it carried a cost. Not everyone celebrated. Some still resisted. And in the shadows of her triumph, another test loomed. But that's a story for another day. Here's what matters now. She showed that black excellence is not about proving worth to doubters. It's about showing up, standing firm, and letting skill speak louder than prejudice. The lesson is simple. Never let rejection define your ceiling. Sometimes the door won't open because it was never built for you. That doesn't mean you don't belong inside. Build your own door, walk through it, and leave it open for others. If this story moved you, hit like, drop a comment with the words "skill over bias," and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that dignity and excellence will always outlast doubt. Because at the end of the day, engines stall, systems fail, but excellence always runs.